Chapter 166. I get a little lonely sometimes too. Blue River and Cold Night weren't wrong. If Lord Grimm continued with his kidnapping of the record, then the matter wouldn't just be between him and both of their guilds. The big guilds would unify and propose a way to resolve the issue, whether that was by bribing him or by killing him. But at the moment, the crisis was only between their guilds. Even if the other guilds knew about Lord Grimm's snatching nature, they wouldn't come out and help them immediately. They would watch them struggle first. If the two guilds actually fell, then that'd be great news for them. What do you plan on doing? Blue River asked Cold Night. I don't know. I wanted to see what you were thinking, Cold Night said. Blue River hesitated. Should he pay the ransom or fight against the kidnapper and compete for the records from now on? Blue River had already clicked on Lord Grimm's name several times, but he hesitated each time. Record-related matters weren't trivial. If they were, then he wouldn't have went over to consult Changing Spring. But since he had just gone to see him, if he went back again, it'd make him seem less capable. Poplar Beach and his gang would definitely mock him for that. But, if they knew that he went to pay the ransom, then Poplar Beach and his gang wouldn't say anything good about that either. Requesting help from the headquarters had already made him look shameful. In all of the new server's history, such a situation had never occurred before. For all the previous times, the experts that had been sent used their own strength to start anew. This time, he definitely couldn't pay the ransom. Blue River made a decision. He had to demonstrate his worth. I've decided to set the record first and then worry about the rest later. Blue River didn't click on Lord Grimm's name and instead sent a message to Cold Night. Oh, you're going to ignore Lord Grimm's actions? Cold Night said. Yes. Okay. I hope that everything goes smoothly. Cold Night said, but he still felt a bit of uncertainty within his heart. Was Blue River really going to set the record, or was he just saying that to avoid giving me a bargaining chip? After all, if word came out that they had paid the ransom to Lord Grimm, it would also hurt their reputation. Which is why when he discussed matters with Blue River, Cold Night didn't say what he had decided on doing. When talking with other guilds, they had to always be on guard. After verifying Blue River's attitude on the matter, Cold Night decided to hold back his troops for now. In any case, they still needed some time to prepare for the Line Canyon record. For today, at least, it was impossible for them to do it. The day gradually brightened. Being Su Mucheng's pillow for the entire night, Yishu's shoulder had become sore long ago. But once he heard the quiet snoring, Yishu knew Su Mucheng had really fallen asleep. However, it was almost 7 o'clock. Some of the customers at the internet cafe had already tidied up and were ready to leave. It was almost time for a shift change as well, so there was no way for them to continue staying here like this. Hey, Yishu turned his head and said, it's time to wake up. What time is it? Su Mucheng asked drowsily. 6:50, Yishu said. It's not even 7 yet, another 10 minutes, Su Mucheng said and even shifted her head to a more comfortable position. Hurry up. I still have to take care of the customers who are getting ready to leave. You were lucky today. No one came to buy food at night, Yishu said. Usually, if anything happened to the machine or if the customers wanted something to eat or drink, it was his responsibility as the manager to take care of it. But it had been particularly peaceful today. It seemed as if everything magically went well for the all-night customers, allowing Su Mucheng to get a good night's rest. Really? Then I really am lucky. Su Mucheng finally lifted her head. She rubbed her eyes and constantly yawned. Cover up well. The customers are coming over, Yishu said. Oh, Su Mucheng wrapped herself up like when she first arrived. Her appearance right now wasn't too revealing. Everyone was about to leave now. Su Mucheng left the receptionist's desk and watched as Yishu helped the customers log out. Some of the customers, who weren't leaving yet, paid to continue using the computers. All night had its own price, while the morning had a different price. Brother Yi, at this moment, the cashiers and managers with the morning shift arrived. Most of them lived close to each other, so they all ate and walked over together. Almost done, Yishu called out to them. He quickly finished up and left the receptionist's desk. The morning shift took over. Yishu's workday was done. What would you like to eat? Yishu asked Sumucheng. Anything is fine. Sumucheng clearly wasn't fully awake yet. She still looked a bit drowsy. Okay, then it'll be the usual, Yishu said. The two of them left the internet cafe together. Chen Guo had gotten up early today. As she went downstairs, she happened to see Yishu leave the internet cafe with a girl. Her first thought that the girl was Tang Ru, but after getting a better look, she could tell that the girl wasn't her. She had lived with Tang Ru for a long time, so she would be able to recognize her just from a rear view. Who is she? Chen Guo ran over to ask others. Everyone shook their heads. Yishu hadn't introduced her to them. Little Tang? Chen Guo turned around and called out to see if Tang Ru was there. Tang Ru was there, but she was in the middle of playing a game. So she couldn't hear her with headphones on. But since she sat in the same place every day, Chen Guo quickly grabbed her. You woke up very early today? Tang Ru turned around and saw Chen Guo. Yeah, Chen Guo replied and then directly asked, who's that sister together with Yishu? Together? Tang Ru heard this and took a look at the receptionist desk. They already left. They left. They left just as I came down. Who is she? Chen Guo said. I don't know her actual name, but she's a girl that dungeons with us every day, Tang Ru said. An online friend? Chen Guo was shocked. Those two know each other, I think. Tang Ru had seen Sumucheng sleep on Yishu's shoulders. Anyone could tell that the relationship between them wasn't ordinary. But she wasn't a gossipy person, so she didn't ask about it. She didn't want to assume that there was a relationship between those two. Online friends shouldn't be so close, which meant that they knew each other very well. So this guy can seduce a girl too, Chen Guo expressed her lament. What does she look like? I don't know. I couldn't see her properly, Tang Ru said. What were you doing the entire night then? Chen Guo expressed her discontent with Tang Ru. Tang Ru helplessly laughed. What do you want to eat? Chen Guo asked. I'll eat whatever you're going to eat. It's not like I have any money. Sigh, Tang Ru also acted shamelessly sometimes. Wait here, Chen Guo rolled her eyes and left. She took care of food and shelter, but because she didn't have any standards, most of the time she would just decide what everyone ate on the spot. Sometimes she would be in a good mood and would invite everyone over for a big meal. Those that were there during those times always felt very lucky. The area around Happy Internet Cafe had quite a few restaurants. Chen Guo naturally had places she frequently went to. After ordering wontons, steamed buns, porridge, and a bunch of other random dishes, she even looked around trying to catch their affair but wasn't able to find anything. When she returned with the breakfast, she didn't see Yishu. She called for Tang Ru to come and eat. She saw Yishu come back with a cigarette in his mouth once they were halfway done. Whoa, boss, you woke up early today, Yishu greeted Chen Guo. What about that girl that was with you? Chen Guo didn't even try to ease into the subject. She just straight up asked him. She went back, Yishu replied calmly. HMPH, you can't mix up work with your social life, Chen Guo said. Wow, wontons. Give me a bowl, Yishu said as he completely went off topic. Didn't you go and eat already? Chen Guo said. I had to pay for that myself, so I ate less, Yishu said. Shameless, Chen Guo ground her teeth, there's none for you. Really? Then I'm going to bed, Yishu ran off. Chen Guo was baffled. She still wanted to continue prodding. Why'd he have to run off? Ha ha ha, Tang Ru laughed on the side. What are you laughing at? Chen Guo glared at her. Nothing, Tang Ru didn't explain. You're becoming more and more like him, Chen Guo wasn't happy. No way. All you do is play games every day. And you also have that weird aura. How long has it been since you've went out and been in the sun? Chen Guo said. Okay, I'll take a walk with you on the weekends. Is that good enough? Tang Ru said. Fine, Chen Guo was satisfied. She had lived with her for almost 2 years, so Tang Ru had already become her close friend. She was the one who kept egging her on to play glory. And now that she had succeeded, she discovered that the time they spent together had actually lessened. In the beginning, Chen Guo thought about whether or not she should level a low-level account and play with them. If Tang Ru or Yi Shu had brought it up, she would have definitely done it. But those two only minded their own business. There was no way they would have thought of her this much. In the end, after pondering about it for a while, she discovered that those two's levels had already gone up. If she started leveling, then she'd have to start from the beginner village, so she threw away that idea. After all, she had played with Chasing Haze for so long that she was very attached to it. If someone told her to give it up, she definitely wouldn't be able to. The only reason she wanted to go to the new server was to play with those two. After they got to the heavenly domain, she would definitely switch back to her main account. The way she saw it, it was already too late to start from the new server, so it'd be better to just wait for those two to reach the heavenly domain. Although Chen Guo didn't say it, she really did feel a little lonely nowadays. Whether that was in the game or outside of it, she felt a bit lonely. I'm full. I'm going to sleep. Tang Ru finished her breakfast and got up to leave. Go ahead. Chen Guo waved her hands and shooed Tang Ru away. She sat there by herself with a bowl of porridge and gazed out towards the empty internet cafe. Chapter 167, Taking Back the Record. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon during Tang Ru's afternoon shift, the two had once again sat by themselves in front of their computers. Tang Ru had decided to give up playing the game during her shift and decided to look over guides instead. Yi Shu, on the other hand, went to the smoking area to try and find a computer. One time, when Chen Guo was bored, she secretly made some calculations. If she charged Yi Shu according to the internet cafe's usual fees, then Yi Shu would be paying twice the salary he gets. Chen Guo had managed the internet cafe for so many years, but this was the first time she had seen anyone utilize the internet cafe employee benefits to such a level. Tang Ru was a close second, and she had an even greater desire to take advantage of them than Yi Shu did. This sister was busiest during the afternoon shift. She practically had no time to play the game, so she asked Chen Guo to move her to the all-night shift. Chen Guo tried very hard to put it off. In-game, the Blue Brook Guild was preparing for their record-setting run when Blue River suddenly saw a notification that Lord Grimm had come online. He immediately felt a great deal of pressure. It wasn't a coincidence that they would be on at the same time. Blue River and his group often played the game all night too. Their resting schedule was practically the same as Yi Shu's. In fact, they had only come online moments ago. Blue Brook Guild naturally understood the importance to this battle. After changing Spring arranged for who would go, he called several players to work together and explore the dungeon. Desolate Land was a dungeon that these Heavenly Domain players hadn't run in a long time, so they had to take some time to familiarize themselves with it. After doing that, they all went to borrow their provided account cards. Changing Spring had personally brought over 3 experts to the 10th server. Blue River wasn't using his own account right now. His character had already leveled past Desolate Land's level limit, so it couldn't be used to set the record. These account cards had just been obtained the previous day. This meant that the characters hadn't used any of their entries for Desolate Land yet. None of the experts had shown any signs of unfamiliarity with the dungeon on their first run. They were, after all, experts. Blue River was the one who was most familiar with the dungeon as he had entered it the most recent. As a result, he was appointed as the leader. They were able to achieve a time of 29 hours 21 minutes and 45 seconds with just a few small mistakes. They had beaten their previous record. The experts that came over to help were extremely effective. Blue River made a major mistake on their second run. The mistake affected their final time, which was 33:54 to 89. This run ended quite poorly. Even if they stretched out the leaderboards, it wasn't even fast enough for them to be placed in the top 20. Sorry, Blue River apologized to everyone. Their poor performance was all because of his mistake. The more experienced experts knew that, due to mistake, there was no way for them to set the record this time. As a result, they played more carelessly and listened to Blue River's constant apologies. They were all old friends, so no one said anything. They couldn't guarantee that they wouldn't make a mistake either. This is our last run for today, we can do it everyone, Changing Spring said. Sigh, this is unexpected. After leaving the normal servers for so many years already, to think I'd have to come back and try so hard for this dungeon again, someone said. Me too. I suddenly feel a bit nostalgic speaking about this, another player followed. Blue Bridge, hurry up and get to the heavenly domain. It's been so long since we've dungeoned together. The current 5-man team was Blue Brook Guild's strongest combo. The guild leader Changing Spring, Ice of Dawn, Chilling Nightfall, Flying Brushstroke, and Blue River's main account Blue Bridge Spring Snow were Blue Brook Guild's 5 greatest experts. Changing Spring had gathered these experts to dungeon in the 10th server, leaving even Poplar Beach unable to object. The players' strengths wouldn't lose out to Poplar Beach in any way. In the guild, they were also considered seniors. Their dispatch meant that Blue Brook Guild was using their greatest strength to fight. Even if Poplar Beach was confident that he was better than Blue River, because of what their team signified, there was no way he'd be able to switch in for Blue River. This is our last run for today. We can do it, brothers, Blue River said and then took a deep breath. He was even more pressured than the other 4. This record was closely related to his guild's power in the 10th server. But once he thought of Lord Grim, Blue River couldn't calm down. He was always worried that their record wouldn't be good enough and that it would be stepped on by Lord Grim again. Calm down, be cool, concentrate. Blue River kept on repeating these words to himself as he entered Desolate Land for their 3rd run. Changing Spring was a berserker, Dawn of Ice was a summoner, Chilling Nightfall was an elementalist, Flying Brushstroke was a spitfire, and with Blue River's Blade Master, their team was a full DPS team without an MT or a healer either. Even though their skill level couldn't be compared to pro players, they were definitely at the peak of normal players. For a low-level dungeon like Desolate Land, even though they weren't using their main accounts, they were still confident with rolling through the dungeon using their full DPS team. Only this type of DPS team could take the final record. For example, in their previous record for Desolate Land, even though they didn't have an MT, they still had Bound Boat's Cleric. Because of this, their DPS was brought down as opposed to Lord Grim's team which was full DPS. As a result, it was clear that if they didn't use a DPS team too, then there would be no way to compete with Lord Grim. This was why Blue River needed the help of experts from the Heavenly Domain. 3rd try. Everyone's spirit was at their peak. They had made mistakes in their last 2 runs, but this time, they were going to put an end to that. Everyone put in 100% of their effort and pushed on and on. The first boss fell. The second boss fell. The rest of the way went by smoothly after they had cleared out the monsters. Their current performance was definitely worthy of being praised. However, they had understood very well about Boss Toya's style. Stealing time from Toya needed a bit of luck. This boss had too many skills. Who knew what he would do when they faced off against him? There wouldn't be a set time without a good strategy. Many wanted to restrict Toya but, at level 30, they didn't have enough skills. So their only choice was to use coordination. But coordinating against such a complicated boss needed both time and practice. Due to this, the difficulty of fighting this boss increased. But this was only a low-level dungeon. Many players would only play here for a bit and then move past this stage. Who would take the time to research it? This was why restricting Toya was still just a theory. The expert team of 5 hadn't trained together for any sort of coordination, which meant that they hadn't thought of that type of theory. These players were just using the usual strategy. They would attack and then rely on themselves to push down Toya. The battle flew by and the remnants of the battle was displayed on the castle walls and in the rear garden. Sword lights, bullets, magic, and summoned pets filled the garden as the 5 players surrounded Toya. At this moment, none of them could afford looking at the time. They could only do their best. Toya fell. Blue River didn't even get the opportunity to check the time, when suddenly, the system announcement popped up. Their Blue Brook Guild had finally taken down this Desolate Lands record, 26 hours 31 minutes and 55 seconds. We did it, those 4 were extremely happy, but Blue River didn't even think about relaxing yet. 26 hours 31 minutes and 55 seconds. They were only faster than Lord Grimm's record by a minute and a half. But Blue River clearly knew, Lord Grimm's team hadn't reached their limit yet. Not only was their equipment lacking, but they also had someone on their team who was holding them back. Even so, their 5 greatest experts team was only able to improve the record by a minute and a half. This meant that this record wasn't completely unbeatable yet. Do you guys think it's possible to improve this record? After they exited the dungeon, Blue River asked them seriously. You think that this record isn't enough to beat Lord Grimm? Changing Spring said. Yeah, Blue River nodded his head. If we have to improve, then there isn't much we can do about the small monsters. It would all have to depend on Toya. If we are able to completely suppress Toya and be the first to act, then it's still possible to improve the record, Flying Brushstroke said. In any case, the record's already been broken and we don't have any more entries left. Right now, the whole world is looking at it. Find people to bring back our influence and clean our name, Changing Spring said. Okay, Blue River replied. They had prepared for this moment. Blue River called the guild and Blue Brook Guild's name immediately appeared all over the world chat. The topic today was a follow-up to last night's topic, which meant that the Taunters from last night might not all be present. But Blue Brook Guild wasn't trying to attack these guys, they were only telling everyone, Blue Brook Guild doesn't need Lord Grimm's help to set a record. Blue Brook Guild actually did it. Cold Knight saw the record and then quietly watched the advertising done by Blue Brook Guild in the world chat. A minute and a half. For Lord Grimm, it might still be possible to beat that. Cold Knight's line of thinking was similar to Blue River's. It looks like we'll soon find out what exactly Blue River's attitude towards this is and what exactly Lord Grimm will do, Cold Knight thought to himself. Meanwhile, Changing Spring and the others withdrew after setting the record. They obviously wouldn't stay to level these accounts. As for Blue River, he was in a more difficult position. He looked at their record and suddenly feared that Lord Grimm's name would appear in front of theirs. After the wave of fear, Blue River suddenly realized that Lord Grimm should have already used up all of his entries for the day. It wasn't midnight yet, so with this in mind, he felt at ease knowing that their record wouldn't be broken right now. It looked like the most crucial stage would take place from 12 to 2 o'clock again. Seeing Lord Grimm's name lit up on his friends list, Blue River was in a conflicted mindset regarding whether or not to talk to him. After pondering over it, he decided to not talk to him after all. The record had already been stolen back. Lord Grimm, I won't come to an agreement with you this time around. Blue River encouraged himself with such thoughts. Chapter 168, Fire Witch Cashew. Blue Brook Guild's PR went quite smoothly. After all, the announcement of their new record was still there. The leaderboards could also be checked at any time. With the presence of this proof, there was nothing new players could criticize them for. New players also didn't have any sort of hate directed towards Blue Brook Guild. The reason why they suddenly raised a storm upon them was simply because Full Moon Guild's bragging made them feel unbelievably disgusted. The time slowly crept towards midnight. Blue River slowly grew nervous as well. From 12:20 to 12:30, those 10 minutes, Blue River stopped doing everything and stared at his screen. The system suddenly made an announcement. As soon as he saw the word system, Blue River froze. System announcement, please play the game in a healthy manner and take a break every once in a while. F***CK. My hair almost turned white from fear. Blue River couldn't help but curse out loud. It was the system announcement that frequently came during the night to remind the players to take a break from the game. Of course, from a game company's perspective, they wouldn't want their players to stop playing the game. Years ago, players might have felt warm-hearted from this fake and insincere reminder. Only noobs would be tricked by this reminder. At 12:30, their record had yet to be broken. Blue River let out a sigh of relief. But then he immediately thought of something else. What if he didn't start at exactly 12 o'clock? As a result, Blue River went back to nervously staring at the screen. Old Blue, you're not going to dungeon today? The team that Blue River played with frequently went over to ask him. I'm going. If Lord Grimm was really going to break the record, then there was no point in worrying about it and wasting time. Blue River thought this way as he followed his team into the dungeon. However, he couldn't concentrate on the dungeon. He made numerous mistakes and, at one point, he almost caused the whole team to be wiped out. Old Blue, how about I lead? Everyone was scared now, but they all understood why Blue River was so distracted. Okay, you lead then. With the switch, Blue River didn't make as many mistakes as he did before. Prior to that, he was practically leading the team to their deaths. After Line Canyon was cleared, it was as if half the night had gone by. There wasn't any new system announcements, letting Blue River finally relax a bit. Meanwhile, on Yishu's side, they hadn't gonna set a record tonight. At 11 o'clock, Tang Ru changed shifts and began playing the game. They invited Steamed Bun Invasion and waited for Su Mucheng to come online. The four-player team then went to Fire Forest together. Frost Forest, Fire Forest, Gloom Forest, and Sunlight Forest were Glory's four large forests, which were also leveling areas and dungeons. Frost Forest was the lowest level one among the four. Fire Forest, which was the one Yishu and his group were going to, was a level 34 to 36 area. As level 30 characters, level 35 monsters would give them the most experience. However, no matter how much experience wild monsters gave, there was no way they could compete with the elite monsters in dungeons. Plus, because of the end of dungeon experience rewards, running to the leveling area instead of to a dungeon was not the wisest choice. A veteran of the game like Yishu definitely wouldn't make such an unwise choice. However, they weren't going there to level. Yishu's goal was the Fire Forest's wild boss, Fire Witch Cashew. In Frost Forest, the strongest hidden boss White Witch was proficient in ice elemental magic. As for Fire Forest, the Fire Witch, proficient in fire elemental magic, was an existence even greater than hidden bosses, Wild Boss. The Wild Boss was always the highest level in the leveling area, which meant Fire Witch Cashew was level 36. Level 36 was 6 levels higher than Yishu and his group's characters. They wouldn't gain much experience because that exceeded the 5-level limit. However, killing a boss wasn't something that was done to gain levels. Still, a 6-level suppression. This was a huge disadvantage for them. The current elite teams of the big guilds were level 32, yet even they didn't dare to provoke the Fire Witch Cashew, they were already scared of a 4-level suppression. After all, she wasn't just some regular monster. She was the strongest boss type, a wild boss. A 4-level suppression was already enough to make the players retreat. But Yishu was about to lead his team to battle against this wild boss that had a 6-level suppression. As for the other three, they weren't scared at all. Excluding Su Mucheng, Yishu felt a need to let them know that a 6-level suppression wasn't a joke. Everyone, note that there is a 6-level suppression between us and the Fire Witch, Yishu said as they searched for the Fire Witch. The Fire Witch was definitely there. A wild boss would just wander around after spawning if it wasn't killed immediately. The 10th server had opened for 3 weeks already. It wasn't just the Fire Witch, wild bosses from all other higher leveled areas were already waiting for players to clear them. It was different from the first week, where the wild bosses hadn't spawned yet. Okay, Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion replied nonchalantly. Don't underestimate this 6-level suppression. Combined with her identity as a wild boss, a lot of skill effects will be reduced by 60 to 100%. Do you know what a 100% reduction means? That means a complete reduction, no effect. That's why during battle, you're going to need to adjust. Dragon Tooth Stun, Sky Strike's Knock Up, Sand Tosses Blind, and Brick's Dizzy. All of these will have a reduced effect on her, Yishu lectured. Oh, so it's like that. The two nodded. Haven't we already encountered this type of situation in Line Canyon? Wasn't the boss there higher leveled than us? Tang Ru said. Yeah, it was higher leveled, but starting from level 30, normal dungeons wouldn't have level ranges higher than 3 usually. This is because a very high level suppression is difficult to deal with, 3 levels is still manageable. If it weren't for that, then the level 36 Fire Witch would have been killed already. How else could we have gotten a chance to kill it? Yishu explained. Okay, I'll pay attention to it. Tang Ru didn't dare to include Steamed Bun Invasion with a we. Steamed Bun, do you understand? Yishu asked. Understood, Steamed Bun Invasion replied. Yishu couldn't tell whether or not he actually understood. The four wandered around Fire Forest and sometimes killed a few of the monsters along the way. The monsters in all the 4 great forests were goblins. Their levels were different, so they would obviously be different from each other. The Fire Forest's goblins all had red skin with a bloodthirsty look on their faces. They looked much more fierce than Frost Forest's goblins. Here, she's over here. Yi Shu found the silhouette of the Fire Witch Cashew. In the middle of an open space in the forest, a large bonfire blazed. Fire Witch Cashew was standing crazily on one side. She carried an extremely long magic staff, with a flame-shaped rune on top, which seemed to pulsate with the raging fire. Beside her, a large mob of small Fire Forest goblins were circling around the bonfire. They seemed to be holding some sort of a grand ritual. They were shouting and running around, but none of them left. What do we do? No one has touched it for so long that so many monsters have gathered, Su Mucheng said. Don't worry, we have time. Everyone has their potions, right? Yi Shu said. Got him, the others replied. Yi Shu had already told everyone to spend their money in Kanji City and buy mid-grade potions. Okay, then the 2 of you go run away, Yi Shu said. What? Tang Ru didn't understand. You and Steamed Bun run. We'll destroy that bonfire. The enemies will crazily chase after us and then we'll counterattack, Yi Shu said. Okay, Tang Ru's soft mist and Steamed Bun invasion ran off. Su Mucheng's cleansing mist immediately began to store up energy for a laser. In that instant, Yi Shu lifted up his myriad manifestation umbrella and sent anti-tank missiles over. 3 consecutive anti-tank missiles and a giant laser beam shot towards that bonfire. The explosion splashed in every direction like a firework. The goblins shrieked and ferociously glared at the 2 of them. The Fire Witch also turned to glance at them. She raised her magic staff and chanted in an unknown language. The goblin's arms suddenly glowed with a red light. Tisk tisk, the entire mob has flame chasers. The system is so shameless, Yi Shu said, while having his Lord Grim aerial fire backwards. Cleansing Mist did the same. Although their movement speed was quick, it required them to repeatedly chain the same action over and over again. However, this wasn't a problem for pro players. While under their control, their speed wasn't much slower than a witch's low-altitude flight. The only weakness was that they could only fly backwards. Because of this, there were several things they needed to be careful of. For example, Yi Shu was warning Su Mucheng, be careful. Don't crash into a tree. If I follow you, then I won't crash into anything, Su Mucheng said. That's not true. If you made a mistake then you'd be the first one to crash into a tree, Su Mucheng said. No, I'm afraid you'll crash into me, Yi Shu said. The 2 talked as they aerial fired. It clearly wasn't anything difficult for them. One of them was in the front, the other in the back. They were both light and quick. The distance between those fierce goblins and them grew wider and wider, but the Fire Witch's movement speed wasn't inferior to those 2. She didn't need to use her legs to run. She simply flew in the air towards them. Give her something to play with. Seeing that the Fire Witch was closing in, Yi Shu yelled. Okay, Su Mucheng said. The 2 flew backwards as they fired towards the Fire Witch. If this was a normal monster, then being repeatedly fired at like this would cause it to be pushed back. But to this Fire Witch who was 6 levels higher, these bullets had no effect on her movement speed. A little bigger, Yi Shu yelled as he fired 3 anti-tank missiles. Su Mucheng was slightly slower, causing their 6 anti-tank missiles to form a line. The 6 consecutive anti-tank missiles exploded one after another. The Fire Witch finally gave the skills some face and was slowed down a bit. But the effects didn't even last a second as she quickly began closing in again. Chapter 169, Skill Interrupt. The 6-level suppression truly couldn't be looked down upon. The knockback caused by the 6 anti-tank missiles on the Fire Witch wasn't even equal to that of a normal attack on an ordinary monster. And that was even with the Fire Witch luckily being a mage type. She wasn't born with a sturdy body. If she was switched with a strength type boss, then under the 6-level suppression, the 6 anti-tank missiles would simply seem like fleeting clouds. Yi Shu and Su Mucheng obviously recognized this, which was why they hadn't placed very high hopes on it. They only needed to buy a bit more time. Even with this though, the Fire Witch was still closing in on the 2. As soon as they entered her attack range, she immediately lifted her staff and chanted a few words. The space around them seemed to suddenly split open. Two massive fireballs formed and crashed down from the sky towards them. The Fire Witch continued give chase as she cast the spell. Magic that required chanting usually couldn't be done while moving. But there was one exception: elementalists. After learning the level 30 passive skill Mobile Cast, elementalists were able to move while casting spells. Of course, their movement speed would be greatly reduced under this situation. Leveling the passive skill would decrease the extent by which the movement speed was reduced. However, even at max level, elementalists would still only be able to move at 50% of their usual speed. It still couldn't be compared with moving under normal conditions. Although the Fire Witch was a boss, she still had to comply with the rules of the system. Her movement speed had greatly reduced while she was casting those two massive fireballs. Yishu and Sumucheng easily dodged the attack and took advantage of the opportunity to widen the distance between them and the Fire Witch. The Fire Witch's AI wasn't very smart. She would first have to catch up to them before attacking. As soon as there was an opportunity to attack, she would cast a spell and slow down. Through this alternation between her movement speed, Lord Grimm and Cleansing Mist were always able to maintain a certain distance from her. The goblins were eventually left behind, so they gradually left the battle. The goblins were all normal monsters in the leveling area. They were completely unrelated to the Fire Witch. The reason so many of them had accumulated around her was because the Fire Witch hadn't been killed for such a long time. They all had their own way of deciding on aggro. At this moment, their targets were getting further and further away. Soon, they could no longer see their targets, so the goblins turned around and went away to play. As for Yishu and Sumucheng, all they could was run around in circles. The boss also had a limited range for where she was able to move around. It wasn't possible to bring the Fire Forest's Fire Witch all the way to Frost Forest. Coordinates 1658, 1542, Yishu messaged Tangru and steamed Bun invasion. With the way he and Sumucheng retreated while attacking, it appeared as if they were kiting the Fire Witch. However, the two of them weren't able to chain their attacks too closely. In addition, though the boss's life would still automatically recover. Even though the recovery wouldn't completely mitigate the damage they had done, or even if they had infinite mana, it would still take them more than a day to take down the boss. Tangru and steamed Bun invasion received the message and quickly rushed over. When they got there, they saw that the goblins that used to be with the Fire Witch were already gone. Yishu and Sumucheng no longer needed to play tag with the Fire Witch anymore, so they began hunting her down. "We have arrived," steamed Bun invasion announced. He himself hadn't arrived yet, though his brick had. The flying brick smashed into the back of the Fire Witch's head. The Fire Witch seemed to have been stunned for a bit, but she instantly recovered. "Look carefully before using it. Dizzy won't have much of an effect on her, so only use it to interrupt her skills," Yishu instructed steamed Bun invasion. No matter how short the dizzy effect lasted, it was still a status effect. If the Fire Witch was hit while casting a spell, then the spell would definitely get interrupted. Of course, the prerequisite was that the dizzy effect activated. If it didn't, then the damage dealt from it wouldn't nearly be enough to interrupt her spells. "You also have Inject Poison. Pay attention to how you use it," Yishu reminded steamed Bun invasion. Inject Poison was a level 30 brawler skill. Even though the skill's name contained the word poison, it didn't actually have any poison effects. This skill had two effects: it could induce a bleed effect, and it could also break super armor. The target could not be knocked down, launched, knocked back, or interrupted when it was in super armor. Unless a grab-type skill was used, the target could not be moved forcibly. Inject Poison was a skill that could get rid of this super armor. At its lowest level, the skill could dispel super armor for up to 5 seconds. At max level, the skill could dispel super armor for up to 10 seconds. Under the Fire Witch's level suppression, there was no way Inject Poison would be able to dispel super armor for a full 5 seconds. However, steamed Bun invasion could still hear Yishu's instruction from before, telling him that he should circle around the Fire Witch and be ready to use Inject Poison at any time. Whenever the Fire Witch attacked or cast magic, a red glow would emanate from her. This was her appearance when she was in a super armor state. In this state, the Fire Witch was unstoppable. Neither normal attacks nor skills had any way of stopping her movements. She suddenly opened her arms. Not only was there a red glow around her body, a fiery aura also emanated outwards, making everything around her go up in flames. Quite a few dried up leaves also leapt up in flames. Meteor shower. This was the Fire Witch's Aoi spell. The spell summoned numerous meteors that would fall like rain onto the target. Inject poison. Yi Shu didn't have time to tell him what the spell was. As soon as he saw the Fire Witch raise her hands, he immediately shouted. Prepared. Steamed Bun Invasion heard Yi Shu's command and immediately used Inject Poison. The Fire Witch took the Inject Poison and the fiery aura emanating from her body instantly retreated. Steamed Bun Invasion was extremely shameless. He was afraid that he would provoke some sort of response. So after he used Inject Poison, he immediately ran and hid behind a tree. Why are you hiding? Steamed Bun Invasion's cowardly display made Yi Shu not know whether he should laugh or cry. If Steamed Bun Invasion wasn't going to use this chance, then he'd have to make up for him. Luckily, Lord Grimm wasn't too far from the Fire Witch. He sent a sky strike and launched the Fire Witch into the air. Under the level suppression and the boss's innate defense, this knockup was only able to make the boss stumble. However, Yi Shu quickly followed up with a falling flower palm, hitting the Fire Witch. After successfully interrupting the Fire Witch's meteor shower, Yi Shu scolded Steamed Bun Invasion, "Don't run. Once Inject Poison is used, you have to hurry up and interrupt her spell." This was supposed to be a chance for Steamed Bun Invasion to practice, but that guy had actually run away. I was afraid that she would have some sort of scary spell, Steamed Bun Invasion immediately replied. In the time it took to say these words, the Fire Witch had already recovered and returned to kill them. Tang Ru's soft mist went to meet up with her. 3 types of chasers danced around her. Besides the neutral chaser and the ice chaser, there was also a fire chaser from the use of falling flower palm. The fire chaser buffed her strength. At this moment, a layer of red magic fluctuations glowed around her arm. Her appearance with the fire chaser looked similar to the buff which the Fire Witch had given to the goblins earlier. Soft Mist initiated with a sky strike. But the Fire Witch didn't budge as she had super armor. The staff in her hands whirled. The rune at the end of her staff brought forth flames as it moved through the air. All of the Fire Witch's attacks carried the fire attribute. This witch's staff was extremely long. The sweep it created covered a wide area. Steamed Bun Invasion, who was just about to go forward, was forced to retreat. Soft Mist, who was already in range, didn't have time to retreat. She hastily ducked to avoid the attack and then rolled, avoiding the streak of flames that came from the Fire Witch's staff. Su Mucheng's cleansing mist was long-range, so she didn't need to get up close. At this moment, she fired a stored-up laser rifle. The laser rifle crashed onto the Fire Witch's body and seemed as if it would penetrate through her body. The momentum it carried was astonishing, but against the witch's super armor, it was only able to deal damage. The Fire Witch continued what she was doing and was once again about to cast a large Aoi spell. Steamed Bun Invasion saw this and panicked. Inject Poison is still on cooldown. He hadn't finished talking, when Lord Grimm rushed forward. He used a circle swing and stabbed the Fire Witch, throwing her and interrupting her spell. Grabs ignored super armor. Interrupting a skill this way seemed simple on paper, but a normal player would still fail 9 out of 10 times. The successful interrupt would only be because of luck. The boss's skills weren't so slow that you had time to see it, rush up, and then use a grab to interrupt it. When the Fire Witch cast a spell like the fireballs, the cast was nearly instant. It was practically the same as not casting at all. Even for large spells like Meteor Shower, if Steamed Bun Invasion was even a step slower, there wouldn't have been enough time to follow up with any skill after his Inject Poison. There was only a 1-second window and sometimes even less. During their battle against Frost Forest Frost Thane, Blue River had a super armor break skill, Wave Wheel Slasher, to use against the boss's super armor skill. But why didn't he use it then? It was because he wasn't good enough. What Yi Shu could do didn't necessarily mean that other players could do as well. Even for Tang Ru, even with her high hand speed, she still lacked in experience. If she had tried to use Circle Swing to interrupt the witch, she would have most likely failed. Too early and the boss would have simply gotten back up and recast the spell. The Circle Swing would then be on cooldown. Too late and well, the spell would have already been released and the Circle Swing would be interrupted. Lord Grimm was unspecialized. Besides Circle Swing, he also had access to skills like Back Throw and Wave Wheel Slasher, which could break super armor. He had the ability to continuously interrupt the Fire Witch's casting. Letting Steamed Bun Invasion use inject poison was simply a convenient way to help him learn. Fighting against this big boss with a huge level gap was to practice interrupting skills. Chapter 170, Fire Witch First Kill. Interrupt. Interrupt. Steamed Bun Invasion's voice repeatedly resounded. This guy was always immersed into the games he played, and he would often shout out his moves like characters in early Hong Kong kung fu movies. His punches and kicks all carried whooshing sound effects. This type of constant shouting frequently disturbed the moods of the opponents he faced in the arena. But truthfully, Steamed Bun Invasion's dubbing had absolutely no meaning to them. For example, in this big boss battle, it definitely wouldn't affect the situation. Even so, he would still shout as usual. Yishu deliberately gave Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion chances to practice, letting them have the opportunity to interrupt the Fire Witch. They were only killing a boss, so there was no need to worry about time. Because these two lacked experience with the way they were fighting, there was no way a mistake wouldn't be made during the long boss battle. Not good. Run, Yishu suddenly shouted. Tang Ru had been one step too slow in interrupting the Fire Witch's meteor shower. Yishu felt that there wasn't enough time to rescue the situation, so he hastily warned them. Su Mucheng's cleansing mist was already outside the spell's range, so she was safe. Yishu's Lord Grimm used a shadow clone technique and left his fake body there, while his real body instantly escaped. The remaining players, Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion, were in a more difficult predicament. The two players were melee classes, so they were the closest to the Fire Witch when the spell was cast. The spell array took form and the air above them began to boil. It seemed as if the entire sky had ignited on fire. Fireballs of different sizes swiftly dropped from the sky. Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion hastily had their characters run away, but it was impossible to completely dodge them all. The countless meteors showered down and the earth and skies instantly turned into a sea of flames. When the two of them rushed out of the fire, they only had a sliver of health left. They miserably retreated to one side and began drinking potions to recover. Fortunately, the range of large Aoi spells such as Meteor Fall couldn't be shifted when the magician cast them while moving. If not, then the Fire Witch would have chased the two of them and they would have already died and returned back to Kanji City. My bad, Tang Ru said. She wasn't someone who refused to admit her mistakes. She only wanted to improve. Pay attention to the timing. Yishu didn't say too much. He had already indicated when they should act. Putting it into practice depended on them to grasp the timing. It all relied on the individual's reaction speed and judgment. Yishu couldn't help them at this. The successfully cast Meteor Fall set the fire forest ablaze. After the Fire Witch shrieked and cackled several times, she continued to wave her staff at them. Don't worry about it. Forward, Yishu commanded. With regards to Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion, Yishu wasn't letting them go and freely practice. For example, the two weren't at full health yet. If they failed to interrupt a spell again, then they might die. Yishu would take up the task in this type of situation. He had a 100% chance of success in interrupting her spells with his excellent movements. Wave Wheel Slasher. This time, Yishu's Lord Grimm used a Spellblade skill. The tip of the blade would lock the Fire Witch in a spell array and cast a wave wheel that would slash the Fire Witch multiple times. If there were any other enemies nearby, the wave wheel would also damage them. Once the wave wheel had finished spinning, it would explode and cause the target to fly out, similar to the Fire Witch, who was now on the ground. The battle continued. In this type of continuous battling, even top-tier pro players like Yishu couldn't guarantee that a mistake wouldn't occur. So Lord Grimm also took some damage. The only player who hadn't taken damage was the long-ranged cleansing mist. The battle would last for hours. It wasn't one that could be finished in a matter of minutes. Time passed by slowly. No one in the 10th server knew that such an intense and difficult battle was going on in Fire Forest. 4 characters were hunting down the wild boss Fire Witch that was 6 levels above them. This was something no player could ever imagine. All of the guild's players were still running dungeons at a suitable level for them. The only wild bosses they were paying attention to were the ones in Frost Forest, Boneyard, Desolate Land, and Line Canyon. Fire Forest? In truth, it was about time. The highest leveled characters currently were all halfway through to level 32. As soon as they had reached level 33, they would begin hunting down Fire Forest's Fire Witch. Line Canyon and Desolate Land were also done in a similar way. 1 o'clock. 1:30. 2 o'clock. 2:30. If they're running Desolate Land, then they should be done by now. No, Blue River and his friends had already finished running the dungeon 3 times. If Lord Grimm was going to set the record, then he shouldn't be so late. 2.5 hours had already passed, yet there were still no signs of any record being set. Could it be that Lord Grimm was also having a bit of trouble? It was only the first day, so Blue River didn't dare be too happy. He only let out a sigh of relief. He couldn't smile yet. Let's go to Desolate Land, Blue River said. They had just run Line Canyon. But while they were traveling, a system announcement suddenly popped up. System announcement: players Lord Grimm, Cleansing Mist, Soft Mist, and Steamed Bun Invasion have completed the first kill for Fire Witch Cashew. Amidst all of the random messages in the World Channel, this system announcement looked as if it was some joke made by a naive noob. Fire Cashew first kill. Those who reacted were, of course, veterans and experts. In the instant that announcement was made, Blue River froze. The 4 friends he was with had also frozen. At this moment, they all had the same reaction. They moved their mouse over to the World Channel and dragged the chat box to check the announcement again. Each player carefully and earnestly looked at it over again. Not a single word of it was misplaced. Fire Witch? Blue River didn't want to believe it. Fire Forest's Fire Witch? Blue River wasn't the only one with this doubt. However, to these experienced Glory players, they were well aware that there existed only one Fire Witch in the game. No way. There were even a few in the internet cafe who cried out in alarm. The initial waves of the 10th server opening had already passed. There weren't many Glory players in Happy Internet Cafe who mainly played in the 10th server. Most of the all-night veterans were in the other servers, so they hadn't seen the news. As a result, they were obviously indifferent towards it. The few who did react weren't familiar with each other. They could only discuss the astonishing news with their friends in-game. Fortunately, they had completed the first kill late at night. If not, all of those in Happy Internet Cafe who had known that Lord Grimm was being played by Yi Shu would circle around and watch him. So we finally killed it. In Happy Internet Cafe, Yi Shu and Tang Ru both let out a sigh of relief. After the final blow hit the Fire Witch, her body burst into flames. Her mean and ferocious expression could be seen in the wisps of leftover flames. Once the flames died down, a few equipment and materials dropped. 3.5 hours. The 4 of them had been fighting the Fire Witch for a long 3.5 hours. It could be seen just how hard it was to beat a 6-level higher wild boss from this. Tang Ru's Soft Mist and Steamed Bun Invasion had almost died several times. Su Mucheng's Cleansing Mist was fine. Yi Shu's Lord Grimm, on the other hand, was just playing around. Tang Ru could tell with a single glance that he wasn't trying his hardest. Not easy, not easy. Let's see what she dropped, Yi Shu said as he went to take a look at the dropped equipment and materials. Flame Stone. Yes, I'll be taking this. Yi Shu picked up this material. Red Flame Staff, a level 35 purple weapon. Sadly, we can't use this rare item, so let's leave it for selling or for trading equipment. Yi Shu looked over the second item. Red Flame Gown, a level 35 blue cloth armor. It increases fire resistance. This, none of you are cloth type classes, so we don't need it either. It can only be sold for money. The third item. Wow, Scarlet Moon Belt, it looks like someone's luck is good today. Take it. With this, your set will be complete. The Fire Witch dropped level 30 to 35 items. The fourth drop was given to Tang-Ru. Even though she already had it, she could still trade it for the part she was missing. Fire Spirit's Ring, it also increases fire resistance. How useless. The fifth was also a blue equipment, a level 30 ring that increased fire resistance. These types of equipment were only useful against certain kinds of enemies. Under normal circumstances, there wasn't much of a difference between it and regular magic resistance. 4 equipment were dropped. A purple weapon too. Not bad. Yishu nodded his head in approval. Are we rich? Steamed Bun Invasion asked gleefully. We're not that lucky, Yishu said. He then discovered that they all chose to give up on these items. Only Tang-Ru had rolled for the Scarlet Moon Belt. Seeing everyone's trust in him, Yishu did an object. He picked them all up and then gave the red flame staff to Steamed Bun Invasion. Selling it for 200 gold coins won't be a problem. You can use that to buy a set for yourself. Really? Awesome. Steamed Bun Invasion received it with excitement. The other 2 equipment, the Red Flame Gown and the Fire Spirit's Ring, were less important from a long-term perspective. However, players were about to hit level 33 at present. If they were going to compete in this fire forest, then fire-resistant equipment would greatly increase their chances of survival, so it was uncertain how much they would sell for. Okay, let's go back to dungeoning. Because of this first kill, the entire community was completely shocked. Yishu didn't care though. As for Tang-Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion, they didn't really take the Fire Witch seriously. The 6th level suppression only reduced the damage they dealt and reduced their skill's effects. It made the battle very long, and even though they almost died several times, from a mechanical perspective, the two didn't feel that killing the boss was too difficult. So easy. This was Tang-Ru's final opinion on the matter.